So this little bonus section is to introduce you to some graphs of basic polynomials, some of which you've seen before and others we're going to continue working on throughout the course of the semester. You could kind of think of this as a menagerie of graphs. We're going to look at the identity, polynomial, squaring, and cubic functions. So the simplest polynomial function is f of x equals x. This function pairs each real number with itself. So if I have f of 1, that's 1. If I have f of negative 2, that's negative 2, right? This is a linear function. Its slope is 1. Its y-intercept is 0. Each ordered pair has the same x and y value. Its domain, meaning all possible x values it could take on, goes from negative infinity to positive infinity. The same goes for its range, which is all the y values it could take on. It goes from negative infinity to positive infinity. The next function, and probably the function we're going to spend the most time with, is the squaring function. F of x equals x squared. For this function, every real number is paired with its square. The graph of a squaring function is called a parabola. This is a degree 2 polynomial, also known as a quadratic equation. And something unique happens when we match every number with its square. If I have f of 2, that's 2 squared, which is 4. If I have f of 0, that's 0 squared, which is 0. If I have f of negative 2, that's negative 2 squared, which is a positive 4. So that means my function's values for this basic squaring function can never be negative. Because of that, my domain goes from negative infinity to positive infinity, but my range only goes from 0 to positive infinity. Notice that there's also a line of symmetry. We're going to talk about that later. But along the y-axis, because if I was to fold this graph in half, it would lay over itself. It's symmetrical, kind of like a butterfly, right? If I was to attempt to draw a butterfly, am I going to do that right now? Maybe in a highlighter. And solely for your amusement. Okay, so we've got a butterfly. Oh, crud. I tried to make that symmetrical. Okay, maybe this is mostly for my amusement. But yeah, there's a butterfly. It has a line of symmetry right down the middle. Oh, I love teaching. Last, I want to talk about the cubic function. F of x equals x cubed. It pairs every real number with its cube. It's a degree 3 polynomial or a cubic function. As you can see, its domain goes from negative infinity, let's ignore the highlighter, negative infinity to positive infinity, and so does its range. Well, why is that? Well, remember if I take a negative number cubed, so f of x is negative 2, which would be negative 2 cubed. 3 negatives give me a negative, right? A negative times a negative becomes a positive. A positive times a negative is a negative. So I'm going to have negative numbers, 0, and all positive numbers.